Father Larry is very sorry that he can't be here, but he wishes to express deep gratitude to First Presbyterian Church for visiting and encouraging Grandma and Papa often. My father was an unusual man, but of course I didn't know that until I was an adult. To reflect on his life requires me to start from my childhood perspective. From that point of view, he was just Dad. Nothing unusual, just the man who, along with Mom, took care of me. Now, having been a father myself, I see that that is no easy job. He was patient, kind, accommodating, gentle, and gave me freedom to be who I was to become. He and Mom led Alan and me to many activities designed to engender growth and maturation, besides being fun. Some of these include Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts, YMCA activities, fishing, camping, baseball, even electric guitar lessons, and church activities. I think these were all things which he enjoyed and wanted to pass on to us. Having been an Eagle Scout himself, scouting was very important to Dad. He volunteered many, many hours with the local troops that Alan and I were in. If he was disappointed that I did not follow his footsteps, he did not express it. Similarly, he seldom, if ever, said a critical word about others whom he knew. From an adult perspective, I see that Dad was unusual in many good ways. He was wittier than I realized. He was quiet, a bit hesitant, liked talking to people, but was not necessarily outgoing. He had many things going on in his mind, of which I will say more. He was hardworking. I remember how tired he was on coming home in the summer weather. And as Alan has said, when building work was scarce in Fresno, he spent the week in San Jose and returned on weekends. Not an easy time for either Mom or Dad. At other times, he did small jobs as well as projects for the church to help with the unemployed times. Dad was a much more complicated man than I realized. As we were helping Mom and Dad move out of their home of 55 years, the great range of Dad's interests became obvious. The house was filled with evidence of his interests that spanned most of his life, which I could see all at one time. Had we kept a list of the books he had read, it would depict a man of interest, both deep and broad. I think he was very curious and was intrigued by ideas in many fields and read weightier topics than I had realized. Book topics included politics, history, philosophy, health, physics, language and wordplay, mental puzzles, and more. He also had a great interest in art and artistic pursuits that seemed to blossom around his retirement years. He sought to express himself through a variety of media such as pencil and charcoal drawing, oil and acrylic painting, clay and wood sculpture, as well as photography, and of course wood carving, for which he was well known. He had studied calligraphy for his carving and read of how the light, the eye, and the mind interact to produce what we see, which influenced all he worked on. I think his workshop, which he called the barn, developed into a studio. In his latter years, it was hard to see Dad decline in health and abilities. Eventually, he had to give up all his physical pursuits, leave his home, relinquish tools, and discontinue his hobbies. But he was able to maintain his mental activity to the last few days. Though much of his time the last year was spent napping, he was always aware of much of his world. He knew what Mom needed and whether she had been taken care of. He knew the major news stories. He frequently inquired about his grand and great-grandchildren. He kept his subscriptions to Smithsonian and Saturday Evening Post. He kept aware of his investments. In all he gave up, he did not complain, but went on with reluctant acceptance. I suppose we all have speculation about our loved ones in heaven. For me, I imagine Dad marveling at the physical workings of heaven and its beauty. I also see him continuing to wonder, speculate, and inquire about things there. From comments he had made about his mother, I imagine a great reunion with her and other family members. I have much to be thankful for in this life, and one of the greatest is for wonderful parents. A loving and committed mother, a father whose example of curiosity, hard work, acceptance of others, and faithfulness, these are my heritage.
painful history of this sad old world, the most excruciating moment must have been when Christ, on the cross, cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" The Father of creation left his Son to suffer alone. That moment is key to every person's existence, whether we know it or not. We can experience that reconciliation with God that it made possible. We can participate in that mystery. I'm comforted to know that my grandfather did. That same moment symbolizes for me one of the intolerable ills that it itself was designed to heal. Around the world, in our neighborhoods, everywhere we look, are children, both young and old, who have been profoundly damaged by their own father's abandonment. I'm blessed because my grandfather did not participate in that mystery. George Jones, Papa, had a restless, curious mind. He engaged the created world with an omnivorous energy I rarely see in children or teenagers even. He knew something about everything, and it all fascinated him. He was forever busy working in the image of the Creator, designing, building, crafting, trying. Yet in a world that encourages boundless self-indulgence, he focused his love and his care on his family. Papa's faithfulness, his patience, his quiet love, nourished his sons and made it possible, even probable, for us, his offspring, to live in a similar faith. How many lives are marked by the inability to forgive, to wait, to love, but not ours? Papa's legacy is most of all that he was a loving, faithful father and husband. It's taken me 35 years to appreciate Papa as much as I do now, and I bet it will take a long time to really know who he truly was. I may never in this lifetime. A large part of my grief today is that I've lost the chance to know this man in life better than I do. His humor, his wide-ranging knowledge, his passion for understanding how the world operates and for tinkering with it, most of all, his consistent presence as a father who does not leave. All these I carry within me now.